TV Puerto Rico, otra vez en Bespoke, aquí donde mi amigo y colega el licenciado Rey Reyes, su hijo, su esposa, todo el mundo trabaja en este hermoso proyecto de importación y de vinos espectaculares de todas partes del mundo. Y tengo a Rob Sweeney, un winemaker legendario en Napa Valley, y nos va a hablar de Gravel Pit. Estos vinos no los conozco y vamos a hacer otro contenido también de una bodega espectacular que también trae Bespoke, que se llama Vinecliff. Rob, how are you?
Excellent.
I heard you had a 9-course dinner last night.
No, it was just rice and beans.
Oh, rice and beans, very simple. How are you?
Good.
This is your first time in Puerto Rico?
More or less.
Okay.
I mean, I spent one night here like 20
Okay.
years ago, so yeah,
All right,
this
yeah,
is
it
my
doesn't
first
count.
real trip.
Okay. How do you like it so
I
far?
love it.
They've been giving you a lot of food?
Yeah, too much.
A lot of alcohol as well?
A little bit.
Okay. Rum, wine, whiskey, everything, all of the above?
Mostly wine.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, good. So
A little cognac one night.
a little cognac. Well, that's after dinner. It's
Yes.
well worth it. Tell me a little bit about, before we get into Gravel Pit, tell me a little bit about you, your career in wine, how you started, how you busted your chops growing up.
So my family was in the hotel business, so that's the introduction to Napa Valley. And so I started taking classes at Napa Valley College on winemaking and grape growing, but I really gravitated towards the growing.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up working from 1986 to 1992 for wineries and various jobs. I started in the cellar, worked in vineyards, and during that 6 years, gaining experience, also went to Napa Valley College and got my 2-year degree, but it took 4 years,
Okay.
part-time,
Yeah.
in viticulture, which is grape growing. And my first year working for my families, we built a vineyard and was planted in 1986.
Okay.
The first crop was 3 years later, 1989.
Mm-hmm.
The first vintage we decided to bottle was
This is on your father or mother's side? So your family.
So my parents bought 100 acres in Napa Valley in Oakville,
Okay.
on a hillside, an old winery that existed from 1871
Oh wow.
until about 1906, and phylloxera, which is a under the soil pest, wiped out the vineyards, and then the buildings burned down in 1906, and then the property sat for 80 years with nothing there.
Wow.
So my family bought the property for
Okay.
a really low amount of money then,
Okay.
compared to what it's worth now,
Okay.
and then planted the vineyard.
Planted it with what? Which grapes?
Well, it's Oakville,
Okay, cap, yeah.
so Chenin Blanc, of course. So we planted the vineyard, and then the idea was that this was going to be a place that we could maybe go on the weekends and hang out. We lived an hour away, close to San Francisco, and we were planning on selling the grapes. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of technology in 1989. We had a tape recorder, and we ran an ad for the grapes for sale.
That's amazing.
And a week later, when I came back up, there was recordings of all these messages. A lot. Like, it filled up the recorder full, and everybody wanted to buy the grapes. So I remember calling my family and saying, you know what, we're not going to have a problem, and everybody wants them. BB wants them, Madavi wants them, all the big wineries.
Oh wow.
Everybody wanted these grapes.
But they knew of the quality of the soil
And
and
the area
the
and the
area, okay.
geography. And so
Right.
then that was when my family decided, well, then we shouldn't sell them.
Okay.
If everybody wants them, there must
Yeah,
be
yeah.
something special.
We gotta
then-
do something with
so
our
then
fruit.
we took the grapes to a winery, and we made 89, 90, 91, and 92 and 3, those first vintages from another winery with our grapes. And then in 1994, we built the winery where we felt like we could do better ourselves.
Okay.
That we could treat the grapes with more respect.
Okay.
So we built a winery. The winemaker from Stag's Leap Wine Cellars left and came to join us. And so then I was his cellar worker, 94, 1995, 96, 97, those 4 years. So he was the winemaker, I was his helper, and I learned from him.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Big names.
And so that was the very beginning of the family winery. We decided to make 1990 our first vintage.
And this is Vinecliff.
Yes.
Okay.
Vinecliff.
Yeah. Delicious wines. We're gonna get into those. I've done interviews from Bespoke in the past with those delicious Napa Valley wines. So let's get into Gravel Pit and taste for a bit. Tell me about Gravel Pit. I love the labels there. Tell me about this project.
So After being at Vinecliff since December 1991, full time, all those years in directing and managing the business and growing the grapes and winemaking, I had a family disagreement in 2016 and I left the winery and I went out on my own. So starting in 2017, I developed, my wife and I, our own wine brand. And it was very difficult to come up with a name that wasn't already trademarked by somebody else.
Right.
There's a winery about 8 years ago that the name of their brand is called Taken, because all the other names were taken.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had the same trouble.
Damn lawyers, right?
Yep. Trademark. Yeah. So we had the same issues, and we had a party with all of our friends, and my wife suggested to our friends that we should do there's no other way to tell the truth about the name. How we came up with it is, what would your stripper name be?
The stripper
Stripper
I
name?
love the stripper name. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So it was, your first dog and your first street address, and for me it would have been Max Braddock, and I lived in a little farm.
So how do you make up the stripper name again? I love this. I'm loving this. How do you come up with your stripper name? Dog?
Your first dog.
My first dog, okay.
Mine was Max, and then your first house street address, which Braddock Road. Yeah.
Oh my God. So for me it would be Whiskey Malecon. Whiskey was my first Labrador, and I lived on a street in Guayaquil, Ecuador called Malecon.
Oh.
So it would be Whiskey Malecon. It's a very cool stripper name, man. Amazing.
My wife's stripper name would have been Trixie Hucklecoat.
Oh
So
my
and
God.
that really sounds like a real
love
name, right?
this story. This is going to go right into social media. Let's get into the Chardonnay.
Okay.
And cheers to you, my
Cheers.
friend. Yeah, it's a little early for wine, but it's never early for wine. All right. Love the nose here.
Later, and I do have, just to finish my thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was that
Camera is all yours.
we found out that actually Braddock Road wasn't my first house from my aunt, and she said that until I was about 5, I lived in a trailer with my mom out behind the gravel pit, and this label is a picture that my aunt sent me, which is a picture of me and my sister on my grandfather's car at the gravel pit. So this is where gravel pit was born. Was just out of knowing. I found out that that's kind of where I started.
I love it, and
Yeah.
it's full circle of sorts because you're coming back to your roots. To
And
your
now I know
origin.
why I love gravel and tractors and.
And I know now I know why I love this nose. It's not because he's my friend or because I've done a lot of stuff with him, but Ray Reyes knows how to select labels on wines. This is a fantastic nose. Burgundian mixed with California sun and has a lovely complexity to it, and very sort of pure fruit, and oh my God, the note that's like a little bit of ginger, chamomile, a little bit of lemon oil, stone fruit.
And as it stays in the glass and develops with air, it starts to gain more of this kind of honeysuckle character, the very ripe.
Yeah, it's coming through beeswax a little bit as
Yeah.
well. See.
It's
Lovely acidity, lovely acidity. Wow.
It's bright and fresh with
Yeah.
acidity, but it
Yeah.
also has this mouthfeel and this viscosity.
Yeah, it does.
And
Does
weight.
it see the barrel treatment? What it's like?
So we're one out of each of 4 barrels, 25% new barrels, and then the other 75% would be experienced
I
barrels.
love that kiss of oak, the cardamom, a little bit of
Little
clove, a little bit of nutmeg of sorts.
Vanilla,
Oh my God. It's
Smoky, toasty.
Smoky, toasty. Yeah, it's incredible. This is a delicious
you.
What's the alcohol level here? 14 something?
It says 14.5 on the label.
Okay, that's what it says.
It's just slightly north of that.
But
be honest with
it feels very balanced.
It does.
It's very graceful. It's weightless. It's not clunky, not chunky. It's very agile. I mean, it carries its weight. It carries its fruit very well. Delicious. What's the price point for this wine retail here, Ray? $49. This is Russian River.
Yes.
It's an amazing.
Single vineyard Russian River.
It's an amazing white wine. Amazing. For $50, you're getting an amazing wine from a guy who knows a thing or two about grapes and
little bit.
winemaking. What do you pair this with at home when you're with your strip-loving friends?
We find that when we first bottled this wine, and it really is, out of all the years of making Chardonnay since 1992, I think my favorite of all. And what we find is that when we open a bottle, right when we first started drinking it, we just found out that it was just empty every time very quickly. It's what we call it's very moreish. You want more, and so we really drink it as much as an aperitif as we do with food. But obviously, scallops.
Yeah,
and, any shellfish, oysters. I've made really good oysters, like with ponzu, shattered frozen ponzu sauce on top, and Tobico.
Can't get enough of this nose, man. The
Yeah.
nose is haunting.
Thank you.
It's unbelievably.
Thank you very much.
Unbelievable. Wow, lovely. Okay, let's get into the Pinot Noir. What can you tell me about this boy?
So so this Chardonnay comes from a vineyard in what they call Green Valley AVA, which is a sub-appellation, a small area within Russian River. And one of the really special soils there is called Gold Ridge soil, and it's gold in many ways, but it's white. It looks like it's sand. And a lot of the vineyards in that soil traditionally were dry farmed, so you don't need irrigation. And right down the street, very, very close to this vineyard, is the Pinot Noir vineyard. This wine came 95% from a single vineyard called Anderson Ross. Mm-hmm. It's right across from a really cool place called Mom's Apple Pie, where they make pies. And so that single vineyard in the same soils.
I, again, perplexed, mesmerized by the elegance of this wine. The nose is, again, Burgundy meets California. Love the spice, the clove, all of that. There's the terroir mushroom, porcini mushroom. There's a lovely freshness, some herbs going on there. Obviously, you have all the red fruit, of course. But there's this lovely irony, minerality, kind of blood orange note to it, and the salinity is very savory.
It is salinity and savory.
Salinity is savory. It's very agile on the palate, and I really like how the finish is long and it kind of evolves. It's a very well made wine.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. I had help. Yeah, I made Cabernet Sauvignon most of my entire career.
Yeah.
And then during the time that I left Finecliff, I really wanted to do something different. And so
it's really delicious.
The funniest story is that I had all of my kids went to a school in Sonoma, though we lived in Napa. And so all the other families that were in wine that became our friends were all made Pinot Noir. Where being from Napa, we made Cabernet Sauvignon. So all the Pinot guys that I became friends with that were winemakers all told me I had Pinot envy.
Well, now you're making something amazing. This cannot be less than $75. How much is this bottle of wine?
64.
64, yeah. This is unbelievably good. What a delicious Pinot Noir. It's amazing. It can rival wines that cost twice the price.
I have a really
so elegant, so
close,
so mineral, so ethereal. It's weightless. I mean, it's got obviously all of that delicious fruit, but it feels very sort of graceful on the palate. I mean, it just caresses your tongue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do traditional, for lack of better description, traditional French winemaking technique. Yeah.
It's very good. It's very good. And you only make Chard and Pinot under the grill?
I do make a little bit of Cab,
Okay.
but not much. But just because I've always did it. But I really love the idea that I do something different that I hadn't done before. Even though I made Chardonnay all those years, I never worked with grapes in Russian River, and they're very unique.
Make sure you separate a little bottle of that Cab for the wine blogger from Puerto Rico, okay?
Okay.
Thank you for the chance. Qué ricos vinos. Gravel Pit lo consiguen aquí en Bespoke. El Chardonnay está en 49.90 y algo. Y el Pinot Noir en 65. Joyas de vinos hechos por un caballero que sabe de esto mucho, y usted lo va a constatar cuando pruebe estos vinos. Gracias por la oportunidad. Recuerden suscribirse al canal, compartir esta entrevista y escribirme si tienen alguna duda. Let's toast. Thank you so much. Love the wines. Salud.
Gracias.